Welcome, everybody. The two-headed basilisk has spoken. It's time. The prophecy has demanded that we at this table review Mörk Borg. Are you fucking excited or what? We've been promising this game for so long. I am so excited to do a system deep dive into Mörk Borg.
Fucking love Mörk Borg.
All right, so let's do it. I mean, we recently all played. I ran a game for all of you. Oh yeah, who is all?
It's me, Franco, the flayed vicar.
And
it's Rio, the gut fiend. I don't know what it was called.
It's me, Shade, the vigorous flay.
Oh, all right,
the Bobby Flay.
Wow, what a vigorous flay.
You're just laying in bed. What
Flay queen.
Flay.
Vigorous flay that was.
All right, everyone. Let's talk
I've
about
had a lot
Mörk
of wet
Borg.
noodle flays, but that one was vigorous.
Oh my god. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to know.
Nick, it's really interesting that this is the second take for this intro,
Yeah.
and you did something completely different.
I did.
You are nuts.
Yeah.
You're just like, I don't have a script, whatever.
I have so many voices in my head at any given moment. It's just which one I give voice to.
That intro was completely different from the first one, and a lot better.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We'll see.
We'll see how this ends up. So recently we did play Mörk Borg. I'm really excited to get everyone's thoughts on it. I have both played and run it. So I'll talk about it from both ends there. But like, what do you all... I just want to hear, what did you all think? Shade and Franco, you have both only played once, correct?
This is the first time I've been a player in an OSR game.
Ooh, that's fascinating.
It's by being
this
the
is
OSR
OS
guy at the table, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was OSR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it was
It's-
kind of
it's
NSR.
new, yeah.
Yeah, NSR, yeah.
So why don't we just dive into it? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I don't want to play fucking basic and expert. There's too many rules.
Damn.
Who wants to go first?
Too
'Cause
many
we
rules.
Sort of went through like I would say it was a one shot.
Yeah.
It was a 5-room dungeon sort of thing. When we played, we also did another one shot. So you've only ever played one shots, Rio.
That's right. I played both book dungeons, I think is what they were.
I played when I was a player a 2-episode one shot, like 2 sessions, and then as a GM, I've played 2 one shots. So first of all, let me just say this is a very kind of narrow view. None of us have played a year of Mörk Borg or something like that. So
Played you even.
this is a question we want
Well,
to talk about later.
okay, yeah.
But first, let's just go through our first opinions. Shade, you never go first. Why don't we start here?
Okay.
We'll go around
Yeah,
the table.
That's true. You never go
Yeah. So Shade, what do you think?
I think that, it's a lot of fun. It's exactly the kind of experience that I would have imagined, knowing what I knew about the system. And, it's not overly complicated. It's very much adjudication based, and I found it to be a pretty collaborative adjudication too. That might be your GM style more than anything, but
Can you say more about that collaborative adjudication?
Do you have a specific example of something
I'll
you
give a
did?
very specific example here. So we were in a we were in this maze, this dungeon, and we came to a river, and we had someone who happened to have the ability to create water, and we adjudicated in that moment how that's going to work, how that's going to, and it wasn't just okay, I'm Nick, Greg says he wants to freeze the water, cool, we're all gonna hop on that. It was also a conversation at the table of, okay, if you do that, I can use my shield to help paddle us, and I was using I had an ability to just divine what direction we needed to go.
Yeah.
Oh, and the shield was important because we were going upriver.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's right.
And so, it felt very collaborative in that sense, and it wasn't, a moment just like I expect any OSR game to largely allow for. It wasn't a moment where I would have to go, okay, well, I mean, if you utilize your action surge, but I mean, you don't have a paddle in your inventory and things like that. It didn't really get bogged down in that. It's moving the narrative forward.
Yeah.
I think that collaborative adjudication too is something that can be very fun because, well, I think it can be really useful, and obviously like everybody's fun is valid, but I think like in that type of way, you can continue to build trust as a referee.
Yeah,
Because you're like,
totally.
I'm impartial. I'm just showing you the world.
I'm not just saying no because I don't like what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah,
You know, that kind
it's like, let's work together to figure out if this is viable because the rules are so light and everything hasn't been decided for us by the game designer.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about the GM side of that
Yeah.
example and stuff like that when it gets to my turn. But first, Rio, as someone who's played 2 one-shots essentially, how do you feel about the game?
Oh man. As someone who gets really attached to their characters and the story that he's telling with
boy.
it was so fun to be having characters like I don't give a shit.
This guy could die so quickly.
I can't wait to hit because we were using a website that
Scum birther.
Yeah.
scum birther. I was like, I'll randomly generate anything. Whatever this says, I'm in it 100%.
Wait,
Yeah.
should we describe Mörk Borg?
Yeah, why don't we? I mean, why don't we? Yeah, why don't we describe?
Let's start at the beginning instead of our takes on it. What
Shit.
What is it?
Yeah,
Now this is the moment where we have like the Ocean's 12 kind
Yeah.
of thing, like, and here's how it came together.
And here's how we explained it at the beginning, which,
so-
which Nick will insert right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to just explain what Mörk Borg is. Yeah, it is a death metal album come to life. Basically, everything in it is a doomed world, but not in a way of like everyone is like going through like a hellscape that is aggressively attacking them at all times. It's more like global warming, where like we know something bad is going to happen if it's left unchecked, but everyone is living their normal life. And that is what Mörk Borg is, because there's like a prophecy about the end of the world that's baked into the game. It's a table you can roll on. Super fun mechanic there. We'll talk about it later. But that is the vibe of the world. People are either trying to survive in this kind of like almost apocalypse moment, or they are trying to live lavishly right at the end, which is essentially the vibes that you can go for. Some people have said in like a longer term game that you can also play like people who are trying to prevent the apocalypse kind of thing, have a whole campaign through that. Totally possible. But the general vibes, the immediate play, like the immediate characters that the game wants you to play vibes wise are just weirdos that are trying to do their best right at the end of the world, which I think is very, very fun. Let's talk Rio. You were saying that you didn't mind the idea of like these characters dying so
They're
quick,
very
right?
lethal.
Right, yeah.
It's a very lethal game.
It's a very lethal game. You went through on our first game 3 characters? 2 characters? There's the guy who vomited on the guards.
I died 3 times. We never made another character.
Yes, because at the end you
Right,
passed
you're-
away.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I died
2
at the very
characters.
end. I felt in a very cheap shot, but that's just because I don't like things that happen to me.
In life, really.
In life, a lot. But yeah, so I really enjoyed just sort of like, because one of the things like in regular D&D gaming, it's like, death is, I don't really like it. But in other games like Borderlands, it's like, oh, okay, I'll die, come back, I'll die, I'll come back. And it's like, this is a game where like the death is definitely like part of the fun. What's the most gruesome way that I can die?
Yeah.
/ make someone else die to get their stuff. Because
Yeah.
I ran out of my own stuff.
The ferocity and quickness with which all of us just took a dead person's shit
Yeah.
was like out of control.
Insane.
Yeah, it was very fun.
It's like we
Yeah.
all just like descended like vultures, and it was basically first come first serve because somebody would just say, "I want this thing,"
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
just take it immediately.
And this is the thing is like going back
was very
to
weird.
what the game wants you to do. The game is fucking like, yeah, strip him for parts. Like
Yeah.
the whole game wants you to just be super like, oh, that guy got like crushed by like a tree ant or whatever. I wonder if his Zweihander, which is like the best sword you can roll for at the beginning of the game, I wonder if his Zweihander is still there.
Yeah, one of my characters had a Zweihander. I was
Yeah.
like, I hope someone takes that 'cause that's a really good weapon.
No one took it?
No,
I think it was.
This is in another
It was
game.
the first
Yeah.
game that they
Oh,
played
okay.
together.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say I
Not
don't
the one
remember
with
you
the
having that. I would have fucking taken it.
But it got left behind because the death was like very
Zweihander.
complicated.
Yeah. Franco, what did you think of the game?
I thought it was pretty cool.
But we
but-
had a conversation. You
Yeah.
said you didn't really like it.
I think I liked it, but I think it was like too deadly, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Like it was just kind of like, okay, we're just gonna like sort of what's it called? Like organ grind our way
Yeah.
through these characters and stuff.
And that's the thing about this game, which I think is very interesting, is that there are 2 ways to play it. One is like all vibes, and you're gonna die so fucking much that like like Rio said, don't get attached to these characters. You're going to be playing like 4 of them per session if you just go by vibes. The other way to play is like super methodical.
That is
slow.
That is
and,
how
like,
I was playing.
Yeah, and like really going through and being like, okay, the next room I can hear something in there. What do I hear? Okay, he says I hear footsteps. Okay, so maybe it's humanoid. Maybe it's doing this. Okay, what should I do to like prep myself for going into that room? What do I have? What does everyone else have? You have to play very cautiously.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that for me would be less fun, but I think there are some people who would just fucking love that.
That is kind of how I was playing it. If you'll recall, like
Yeah.
I was not trying to get into fights.
Totally.
I was like trying to avoid shit the whole time.
You were using all of your OSR principles.
Yeah,
you were
I
like,
would.
okay, let's fucking get through this.
It's like I'm not dying here. Like I'm moving. And that is kind of how I play as a player nowadays.
Yep.
But yeah, you do.
Yeah, you sure do.
Yeah, because I'm just like, why? Why would
why would I risk myself?
Why would I
Yeah.
do this?
Yep.
And then but when we got to the final boss in this dungeon, I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. I guess I'll just attack him, and that would have killed me right away if I didn't have like the omen thing or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then I survived it, and I was kind of like, what would I have had to do to succeed here?
And this is
And
the,
I think that is like kind of the problem I came up against, because it was kind of like, it kind of felt like the dungeon was funneling you to this conclusion, which was to destroy this creature. Because I wasn't sure if there was like another way around it. Because you were saying, I was like, is there a way around it? Like I was like asking you like, is there any way that we can get through this without having to kill this guy?
Yeah.
Or without having to fight this guy? And you were like, kind of no, like he fills up the whole room.
yeah, there are, and this is the weird thing too, is like,
Was this the giant worm?
Yeah, this was like the
Yeah.
big like
no, not the
vicar,
giant worm. That was in your thing. This was the guy who had just
giant
eaten
vicar.
so
No,
much
this was
that he had
the-
expanded.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
the vicar,
Vigorous vigor.
The vigorous
Vigorous
vicar.
vigor.
The thing about it, in my mind, and this is kind of true for all OSR, but it's especially for Mörk Borg, is that it is to affect change upon the world, you have to spend a increasingly high amount of resources.
Yeah.
And what, like you were saying, like, what could we do otherwise? Is like, you could just fucking leave. You could just leave the dungeon. Who cares about this shitty little town that is like people are just being disappeared and dragged into this cave? And like that's the thing is like you can play it a lot of different ways. One of them is to be super like I am the most important thing, and you would survive much more, but you're going to not be able to affect the world as much as like in a 5e.
So I feel like the thing that I would have done then was to just like get a lot more resources.
Yeah,
I would have
right.
left the dungeon and come back with more resources.
Yeah.
Basically.
You've just said something that, and did we do? We didn't do our OSR episode, did we?
We did. Yeah.
We did.
Good.
It's
yeah,
out.
it's out.
Okay. Right. Sorry, couldn't remember. This is one of the things that I feel like
Shay does not listen to the podcast.
You can tell. You can tell. He says not ever listening to the podcast either.
I do listen to it, but I also sometimes merge in my mind whether or not it was a memory of discussing, writing, or listening to it.
It's fine,
So-
man. I literally have to go through all the episodes we have recorded
Yep.
on my computer every single time to be like, what do we have coming out?
Yep. So what I was going to say is I don't remember if I spoke about this during that episode, but you've just said something that I think I do feel I bump up against with OSR games as a general rule. You are the most important thing in the world. Your own safety is the most important thing in the world.
Just like real life.
Yes, just like real life. So why the fuck are you entering this dungeon? And
Money.
and that's one of the things like you know there needs to be a good enough reason, and there isn't always that in OSR games.
Yeah,
Like,
it's true. Yeah,
for example,
it's a really common problem, and it is discussed
Yep.
often.
Yeah, a
It's
lot.
like why would anyone go here?
Yeah.
Why would you come here? And why would you stay here?
The thing about Mörk Borg is that like the world is so shitty that like going into this super dangerous thing for the possibility of being able to escape that shit for just a little while, which was the thing that you guys got,
Yeah.
which was you were all sent by like the nobility of Galgenbeck, which is like the big city in the world, to just go and get a tithe that these people were like breaking their backs to supply to the city. and you go and you find out that the tithe wasn't being supplied because there was like essentially a supply chain issue with all of the villagers like disappearing into this cave and like this new priestess that was kind of suspicious that you guys didn't really know what was going on. And so you're like, in order to get into this party with the nobles where I could like finally eat my fill and be a part of like the excess at the top of the chain,
For one night,
I'm going to put myself into danger to do that. And also, you guys kind of stumbled on a thing which was like, this is way more dangerous than I thought. I thought I was going to just grab some like cattle and food and come back, and now we're risking our lives fighting this behemoth thing that we have to deal with.
I will say another thing to follow up on Shade's thing, to put him on blast or to blast back or to whatever. I don't think this is a system thing. I think this is a dungeon design thing.
Agreed.
I think this is like an adventure design thing.
Totally.
It's sort of like, but I think the reason that you don't see that as much in 5e is because you're all superheroes.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like, oh, obviously we would do this. Nothing can hurt us.
Yeah.
It takes like
We have the power, so the responsibility to fix this is ours.
Yeah, statistically, I will survive every encounter that I come across.
Yep.
So I think the thing that I think that it can be also interesting to play a game where you are not as powerful as that and you are still trying to affect change in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing that I really liked about it was that the kind of ingenuity that you all came up with was
Because we hit it really hard by driving a thing down at it.
you literally had your big ice cube that you were riding down the river on. You're like, oh, we have all of this, like, because you found all of the remaining bits of the tithe that this guy hadn't eaten yet. And you're like, let's just put it all on this ice block and ride it down the stairs because we have to get this tithe out, and this is the way out.
I guess we
and then
could have
like slammed into the guy.
Actually, I just realized, we could have left with the tithe the way we came in.
Oh,
Well,
totally.
yeah,
it was
we-
just harder.
Why didn't we do that?
Because, we were choosing the unknown because
Yeah.
we didn't expect there to be a giant blob of a man there. I guess
we could have
we could have gone the other way, but we knew we were going to potentially face another one of those
Automatons,
automatons. Yeah.
And in fact, if you had gone the other way, you would have gone by the facility where they had figured out how to make more of themselves, which was another problem because they were the ones actually leaving the cave to grab people and bring them back.
So,
and they would have kept doing that.
and
So,
we were limited resources. It took a lot to kill the one.
So we did an even better thing by destroying the big guy.
Yeah, because now they
But
won.
I guess the priestess still turned into a snake and devoured.
Yeah,
everybody.
she did. She won.
She was going to do that anyway.
She was in the end stage. Well, the thing about Mörk Borg, which I really like, is that we talk about in Monster of the Week the apocalypse clock in the background. Any adventure, any good adventure, I think, for Mörk Borg, especially a one-shot, it starts you out right before midnight, right before the big bad thing happens. So you are literally, knowingly or not, the last thing that is going to happen to maybe push this thing off track. And so you guys did all of this stuff, but in the end, it kind of didn't
even
matter for this side thing. But you found the tithe, you brought it back, you had your party. Like the surviving ones did succeed. It was just that like this other thing that was happening that morally was kind of reprehensible kind of did
My character
still
became
go
a
off.
cannibal.
Yeah, your character did become a cannibal.
Well, the other thing too is because of the vibe of it, we came in for the tithe. Like our characters are dirtbags, and we all decided like, we're all fucking scum, and we're just here for the money and the cash and for the party. If we had been a different type of party, we maybe would have never gone to the dungeon and tried to solve whatever was going on
Or
with
maybe
this demon lady.
if you were a different type of party, you could have been like someone in the village that like stands up and be like, "There's something happening in our village, and we have to stop it." And like that.
You mean if our origin was like we are villagers?
Exactly.
Oh,
it
that
like
would've
could have
interesting.
been completely different.
Yeah.
And I think that is totally you're like you can be totally down with the character creation. The type of characters that you can become are all kind of wild anyway. So it'd be kind of hard to be like, yeah, I'm a flayed vicar and I'm just a townsfolk who wants to stop whatever's happening
Is
here.
there like
Yeah, they skinned me alive, but I'm still invested in the well-being of the townsfolk.
Is there a class in Mörk Borg that is just villager or something like that?
Not really. You can be classless. Those are all just
Gutterborn, I feel, are
gutterborn scum. Yeah.
villagers.
They're basically just like
That's
poor.
the word I was trying to think of earlier. Whenever I said whatever I said, I was
But-
Gutterborn scum a lot.
Because like there's like a ton. The thing I love about Mörk Borg is that there's so much content created by the fan base that is just as good as the books, and a lot of those are extra classes and all that kind of thing.
Items.
And so you can find that. You can also play completely classless. It's just fun to play with classes, especially in that sort of like rapidly
One shot,
generating.
Yeah.
You know what really drew me to Mörk Borg?
What?
The bright yellow cover.
It is the art design.
It's beautiful.
So
It's very
fucking
nice.
good.
Judge that book by the cover and pick it up.
And now here's the thing I'm going to tell all of you, which I think I've already told you, but react as though it's specifically for this conversation.
I'll make sure to do that.
Okay, here
because
we
you
go.
were talking to me.
Are you ready? Here we go. I actually did zero prep for both of our
Yes, please.
things. It was great. I literally went online for the one that we did, which I think is called Bloat online. All the villager stuff, that was all me, but the dungeon, it was just something I just grabbed and then fit into an RP thing with the villagers on both ends.
It was really good.
And same with the one that we did. That was one just out of the back of the book.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was fun.
Easy to run.
Easy.
So easy.
One of the most successful games that I have run with zero prep, I will say.
Yep.
It's just fun because everyone is rolling everything on these tables. As a GM or a referee, you're really just arbitrating like whether or not reasonably things could happen, which usually doesn't really require a roll, and you're running the monsters, which sometimes requires a roll. Like when you guys were fighting the big blob guy, he didn't have like an AC or whatever because he's just a person the size of a room. And so whenever you attack him, of course you're going to hit him. He's like literally a wall of flesh. But does it do anything when you attack him? It's more difficult to say. So it was so much fun to run because when you guys were doing the ice block stuff, I could just be like, yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't work. Yeah, the water's acidic, but it would freeze just like water. It's still a
Right,
liquid.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was fun.
You can have acidic ice.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. Like a frozen lemonade.
Shade's like, let me go fucking check
Everything
this.
has a
like a
freezing
frozen.
point.
Yeah. Everything has a free. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a freezing point.
Yeah.
And one of the things
Just like lemonade. Like it was just a lemonade river.
Yeah, exactly.
What was in the river?
It was good soup.
Can you tell
That's
us
a
that?
reference to another episode that
Nasty-
may or may not be
That
related.
no one
Yeah,
likes.
disgusting thing that Nick said.
What was the river? Literally, the only thing it said in it was that there is a river that runs from this point of the dungeon to this point in the dungeon. It is acidic, so that if the characters step into or swim or whatever, they take X amount of damage per round. And at the bottom, visible through this like pretty clear looking water, is gold, trinkets, treasure.
What grabbed my scythe is what I'm asking.
Oh, that was a little GM addition. There was
Oh,
like,
you were just fucking with
there were eels inside that were essentially like grabbing, like wrapping around stuff and trying to pull people in. I kind of got inspired by the Lord of the Rings, River of the Dead or whatever, and I was like, oh, it'd be fun if they couldn't see what was under the water, kind of thing. So I just threw that in. It was fun. Also, the thing about it when you went back to the village and they were all like dead and there was that weird singing and she was like worshiping the sky, weird stuff was happening. You guys almost did. You're like, let's just fucking get out of here. We have what we want. Let's just go. And then one of you was like, no, I'm poisoned. I'm going to go because I'm like infected with this curse. The thing was, he was just infected with like bacteria, but he thought he was infected with the curse.
So we healed the wrong person then.
Yeah, basically.
Because we could have healed Rio's character.
Yeah.
It was Sean who was just poisoned.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he complained the most, so.
Well, his was also the longest lasting.
Yeah, basically, like infection or like being infected is a state in Mörk Borg where you just
Okay.
can't regain health. People interpreted that as I'm under the sway of this curse, and I was like, I'm not gonna. Why would I
Well, I
say
mean-
anything else? This is cool.
Yeah, I mean, because it was.
I think
he
my-
came from being bitten by someone who was clearly infected by a curse.
Well, my thing also didn't have. It was just a cure infection anyway.
Yeah.
So
And
okay.
for Rio,
wouldn't have helped you anyway.
the thing you were cursed right as you picked up the fork.
Yeah.
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 I handed him the fork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing about the
I didn't
fork.
have a weapon, and you're like, "Oh, here, take this fork." And I was like, "All right, it's something."
Yeah, the thing about the fork is like that was literally in the
Fork.
dungeon fork that it allows you to eat anything that you put into your mouth with the fork, like literally a wall you could start eating your way through. You would have been fine.
Sick.
I had a feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it would cause you to become just voraciously hungry, which is what happened
Yeah.
to the guy. The girl gave him the fork, and he started eating everything, and then was kicked out of the village, and then became this horrible thing.
Yeah, I did think when we handed the fork that it would just kind of like when Rio got the fork, it would be like he just eats the guy right in front of you, like whole hog.
Yeah.
And no, it ended up being more of a fight, and that was fine and good. But I was like, okay, that's gonna be the key. Like as long as I can get that out of that guy's hand.
Yeah, it was really smart because he did have a lot of like attacks that were essentially I eat
fork
you.
based.
Okay.
I was worried about that.
You were asking about how to get out of that dungeon too. You know that water, that like whirlpool in front of the statue. When you guys were first going into the cave,
yeah, it was that side.
there was like
waterfall.
you were like, is there
Yeah.
any other entrances? And there's that spout of water coming out the
Yeah,
side of the
I
thing.
wasn't-
That was from the waterfall.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was going to be there, or if it was going to be somewhere else. And I guess we didn't really see, or maybe I just don't remember, like, where does it land? Like, where does it land you? Like, I guess, like,
Yeah.
in a body of water?
It was
or...
basically into like a river that was there.
I was worried about just like any injury.
Yeah.
on that. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Like,
we would have, like, hit the
this-
water real wrong.
yeah.
So why don't we, after this break, talk a little bit about the mechanical way we move throughout Mörk Borg, what it provides a referee or somebody who's running a game or players, and in the end, give our general recommendations on this game. Hey everyone, it's me, Nick, from the Tabletop Podcast. When I'm not hosting, I'm thinking about ways to create a better podcast for you guys, and I think I landed on something pretty fun. In fact, if you go to our Patreon at patreon.com/tabletop and join for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to a new episode a month that we're going to start putting out. In fact, we're going to be calling this one Wild Magic, I think, in that we're going to talk about anything and everything that interests us, not just TTRPGs, though there will be a lot of that. It is truly unhinged, and if you are a fan of the podcast and all of the hosts, you're definitely going to want to be on it. We're thinking of dropping these at the end of each month, so join our Patreon today. That is patreon.com/tabletop. Oh, and there's going to be so much more coming out in the new year there, so don't miss it. Sign up today. Welcome back to Tabletop, everyone. We're talking
thanks for
about
having me.
Mörk Borg. You know what, Rio? I'm so glad you're here.
Kick your feet up. Stay a while.
Yeah. So I'm going to just talk a little bit as the person who's actually refereed or GM'd this game.
Wow. He's big dogging us.
Big dogging ya.
How dare you?
The thing that I really like about Mörk Borg, as I said before, was that you can play with zero prep. It allows you to do a lot of things off the cuff, which I really like. It is sort of like an improviser's dream, because what Mörk Borg provides you is just endless amounts of tables for you to just be like, what's about to happen? I roll. That's about to happen. It's just so good. Like anything you want basically is in there somehow if you didn't know how to adjudicate it at the moment. And by adjudicate, I don't mean like, oh, if I jump off a 20-foot like bridge or whatever, how many D6s of damage am I taking at the bottom? It's like it's not really about like specifics like that. It leaves you to be able to do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, if I jump 20 feet down, how many D6 of damage do I take?
And then it will instead be like, hey, did you know that if you like roll on this table, you can decide weather effects, or there's a prophecy mechanic of the two-headed basilisk, and each adventure or each day when the players wake up, they get to decide what kind of dice they roll, and if they roll a 1, part of the prophecy comes to pass, which could generally change the game. You guys did actually roll and have a bit of the prophecy go off. It was just kind of an underwhelming one where just anyone with children started weeping.
I was like, yeah, I have kids. Why not?
Yeah, and you were just like, oh, I don't know why I'm crying. And that was kind of the end of that. When I was a player, the sky lit on fire, and a horde of like mercenaries from a different war zone started ransacking Gelgenbeck, so that when we got back, it was just like a war zone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it can drastically change the game. And like one of the things that we never went into, it like, because you like resource management, Rio, one of the things about this game, which is really cool, is that you have, your ration dice just like in anything else of like, oh, hey, I have 6 meals that I can eat and 6 drinks of water. And then it's like, hey, all of the water in the world, because of this prophecy, has turned into tar. What is it you're going to drink when your water runs out? Which I know you're about to say, Shade. I do not like that sort of thing, except when it has a fundamental attachment to the game, which I think that the prophecy mechanic has.
Can I ask if you kept it on your sheet or not?
Yeah, I did, but also like going back to another
Kept
thing.
what on your sheet?
just like how many rations or whatever I had.
Oh yeah, because of how you lie.
Yeah, because I just don't give a shit about that stuff in most games.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's put him on blast
Fucking
now.
get me, huh?
Actually,
You want to come for me? You want to come for the king?
Yeah. The main thing that I love about these very rules light NSR systems,
Yeah.
much like Karen or Knave or I guess Mörk Borg instead, and as well because
Mm-hmm.
it also uses a slot-based encumbrance.
Yes.
How do you feel about slot-based encumbrance coming from a 5e?
I like it way better than 5e.
Yeah.
In that it's just like, hey, you have 10 slots. Once your 10 slots are full, you can't pick up any more items. You have to drop something.
Yeah.
So much easier to track. Rio is
He's livid.
staring at me right now. But the thing about
Was the actual problem the method, or was it just like I don't like to keep track of shit at all?
I
and
just
I'm
don't
gonna
like
cheat.
to keep. I don't like to keep track of like a backpack that could have 100 things in it. Too many things is manageable.
Slot-based encumbrance.
Slot-based encumbrance. So what I was saying, 100 things to keep track of, and most of them have super specific niche uses. Like, oh, what is like a pick, like an ice pick, gonna do most of the time when it's not a weapon?
Like
You
in
know
a
what I mean?
5e inventory?
Yeah, or like what is even things that are like a deck of many things, keeping track of how many cards you pull out and things like that. That just is sort of
That's super
That's one I
important.
will disagree with.
Well, no, I'm just
But I
like,
also think that
things
should
that
be
are not
sort
for
of the
me.
DM's responsibility for
that's
something like that.
That's just not something for
What's
me
the
that I
DM's
like to do.
responsibility?
A deck of many things.
Oh,
a
yeah,
DM
yeah.
should 100%.
That's not just something in your back pocket. That's a plot-specific
Yeah.
quest item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's like a whole thing.
But for me, whenever I look at my character sheet in a more crunchy granola thing, I'm really only looking at things that I can use mechanically.
Yeah.
Everything else is like flavor, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have a flask of water, but it doesn't have like charges or anything. It's not like I'm drinking out of a flask to be like blah, blah, blah. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
It is.
Rio is still staring at me, and it's scary.
it is interesting because
You're
it's.
talking. I'm looking at you because you're talking.
Last time we
He's
talked
just
about
nervous.
this, you yelled at me, so I'm a little scared.
Yeah, I wasn't there, so I was glad not to be there. It was a near unlistenable episode.
Oh no.
Jesus Christ.
He was so furious.
So yeah, I just like I don't love that, but in this game, since there is a direct gameplay mechanic that is tied to it, it feels more important to track.
I guess the thing too is in 5e, there's like just a bunch of junk in your backpack, and there can be as much junk as you want in there. Technically,
Everyone-
but does anybody actually keep track of encumbrance?
It's like video game backpack for a lot of people. It's like, oh, I have 1,000 items. I have like 9 rolls
Yeah.
of cheese and 800.
How often have we kept track of inventory? In
I
5e?
agree.
Yeah.
And I do think that I think that I do lean more on the whatever
Yeah.
about it, but
I do
there
too
are
in
moments.
5e.
So like for the ICO that we did,
Yeah.
I actually and it did Jackie.
Well, yeah, that was a PvP scenario.
Well, there was a
so-
specific reason because the blocks, you guys were able to overcome this, but like those were a certain weight, and like that all matters on encumbrance, on pushing and dragging and lifting and things like that. And when Jackie was like, "No, I don't care what you say, Shade. I'm not going to turn on my encumbrance stuff," I was like, I'm not going to argue, but
See?
God damn it.
See, and it's the same thing with like
No, it was mostly just because I was just like, this is.
I guess he wasn't
not
disagreeing
worth
with us,
it
he
in
was
this
just-
moment, and I
Yeah.
will. And you know what? I still made sure she couldn't easily carry them, so
Yeah.
I just took care of it. Is what the decision was.
And here's the other thing of like
Yeah, but then if it's not player facing, the player doesn't like accept it. So you're just like adjudicating it sort of in the background
Yep.
without them knowing.
Yep.
Versus it being like a thing that the player and you are both trusting each other with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And the other thing is like in any more crunchy granola sort of thing is coin weight.
Yeah,
like
there's
having
coin weight.
1,000 pieces of gold in your backpack,
Yeah.
that'd be so
Oh, I thought you-
fucking heavy.
I thought you were trying to say so like there is in OSC, Old School Essentials, which is also like the Dolmen Wood game, they use like coin weight encumbrance. Like everything weighs a certain amount of coins, and so like you can carry a certain amount of coins like times your weight and your strength
'cause you're
score or
leveling
some
up with
bullshit or
money
whatever.
and stuff
I
too, right?
I also don't use that type of encumbrance. I like slot based stuff because it's
Well, I
easy.
like slot-based stuff because
Yeah.
you're like everything in my very minimal backpack.
I don't know
has
why.
to serve
Slot
me
just
in
sounds
some
dirty
way.
to me.
Well, like, and also, so it's like you have an ice pick in your 5e backpack is meaningless. An ice pick in your 10 slot inventory
It's
is
like-
now the only thing that matters.
Yeah, you're like, okay, this ice pick has to serve me, or I should drop it immediately to make room for another thing that might be important later on.
Yeah.
So sorry, because we're now into the weeds of inventory. And,
I guess we are. We were talking about Mörk Borg.
Yeah, but I am curious. Remind me on like Knave or something like that. Is there a correlation between strength and the number of slots you have?
In Knave, yes. In Cairn, no. In Cairn, it's always 10.
Yeah.
In
I was thinking
it
Knave
is-
had a okay.
In Knave, it's equal to your strength defense, which can be anywhere between like 1 and 20.
I will say I'm a little more partial to like I think
Like a strength-based?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
a strength. I do like slot based inventory. Honestly, coming up from like a video game perspective,
Yeah, it
I
just makes sense.
really love when you have a limited number of things that you can carry,
Like The Witcher.
like The Witcher
Yeah.
or Red Dead Redemption
Yeah.
1
Yeah.
and 2. And I like when they show it's on your person, like when you can
Yeah.
physically
I like
see
that too.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the good stuff.
I think
right there.
I think maybe I actually don't know, but I feel like in Cairn or Into the Odd, actually no, Into the Odd doesn't have slot base. That's why Cairn is a hack of Knave and Into the Odd because
Yeah.
it has slots. But I think maybe the reason that it's 10 slots and not based on your strength score is so that like strength doesn't become a god stat.
Right.
Because strength in Cairn is also your like health. It's like
And Mörk Borg
it's like
strength
your physical.
is still your. No, I think it's like health. Like there's a.
I only get
constitution
like
score
1 or
whatever.
2 hit points every time I roll up a new character.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about it is that even if you have like a 20 on one of your stats, which is basically impossible, you're going to only have like a +3. Like having a straight 10 isn't a 0. I think it might be a -1. I think a 10 to a 12 is still a -1.
Yeah, in old D&D games, like the plus the modifiers were like the ranges were much bigger.
That's something that I really like too about Mörk Borg is that the numbers are smaller. Just easier math, easier stuff. And like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel bad when you don't pass a test or whatever because you know that the game is like to pass a general like middle of the road check, you have to beat a 12, which if you think about it, it's actually saying to you the variance of this dice says that you will fail more times than you succeed. And that's why like Gutterborn Scum and stuff is a cool class because it just changes your base level of skill challenge down to a 10. And by skill challenge, it's loose because there aren't really skills. It's just like whenever you have to make a check. So there's some really interesting stuff that comes with that. It is more high lethality because of that. You're more likely to fail than succeed. The consequences are generally pretty dire. And it goes back to your general feeling of like, if I'm playing this like a big damn hero, as Shade likes to say, like, how am I going to affect change upon the world without immediately dying? Which I think is just like a kind of interesting like thing to have. We've never played a game where we're all heroic folks. Like I think in all of the games I've run / played, we've all been kind of misanthropes.
Can you in Mörk Borg do
You can.
heroic?
Like,
Okay.
because, like,
Yeah.
one of the things that I read online, because I was doing a little bit of research for the episode, someone was like, yeah, I'm like a year into a campaign, and we have, like, rolled back. They started, I think, with, like, 9 of the 36 or whatever bits of the prophecy already started. And they were either trying to prevent future ones or trying to undo some of the prophecy's effects. And there's also stuff in the book that's like, what does the two-headed basilisk want from you? And you can roll on that, and maybe that will help you in some way, like work with the prophecy religion side of the game. Also, there's some stuff in there like, the book is so fucking cool lore-wise. Like, the two-headed basilisk, one has made all these prophecies and is always right, but the other head is kind of jealous because it's like, I made the original prophecy, but now everyone just, like, talks to this other one, thinks that I'm just, like, nothing, because I don't speak very often. So it's, like, jealous of the other head. And, like, is there a game where you, like, angle that sort of thing to, like, create a new prophesize or, like, a new prophet of the religion that maybe steers the world back on track? There's like a lot of things you could do as a referee to make it more of that. I just have, again, low prep, always been like, I just want to fucking throw these people into this world, which is just a gritty, grimy world. And the way most people do that with zero prep is yeah, I'm just part of the world. Like I am also a gritty, grimy
Yeah.
asshole.
It's interesting that. So this is kind of related, but I guess a little unrelated.
Shade just winced as I said that. I will say I am I can't say a vile asshole either.
No, it's all good.
The thing that you were saying was really interesting is that like in the games that you have played that I have run for you, like in the Cairns and the Knaves and stuff like that, you guys have all just decided to play assholes.
Yeah.
And like I didn't tell you to do that.
Well, because if you think about it too,
and it's not like I set up and like whenever I've run something like because in like Mörk Borg, I think the character that I was playing was like pretty neutral. Like I didn't really have an idea of what he wanted.
Just trying to survive.
Yeah, he was just trying to survive. But you guys decided to do like oh, we're a bunch of freaks or whatever. Or like in the game that I was running for you guys, which was just like, this is just Cairn. This is Barrow of the Elf King, which is like the most basic thing that you can run.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're like freaks.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, specifically for Mörk Borg, is that character generation, which we should talk about as its own little mini game, because it is amazing in Mörk Borg. Really fun to do. Just random, but very fun. But they make you take like bad traits for your character. It's not like, what is your heroic strength? It's like, do you lie?
Actually, mine was cowardly.
Yeah. Are you cowardly?
So
are you
helped.
this? Are you this? Are you this? And it's so I guess it kind of drives you to think of yourself more negatively at the start.
Yes.
I think that also a game could emerge where you guys become big damn heroes when you overcome yourselves in order to be able to try to act for the betterment of others. You know what I mean? So there's a way to do it. I think that it is very fun just to be a fucking weirdo. And also I just think that like adventurers, if you were to think of how do these people actually work, they are people who do not take normal jobs in society so they can plunder dangerous areas. Like these are not normal.
That's what every
Like
adventure
if
is.
if someone told you in real life that they were a mercenary today,
Yeah.
you'd have a lot of feelings and questions about them
You'd
immediately.
be like,
You're like,
what? You chose this? You know what I mean?
It's like, oh, I delve into dungeons to steal things. If somebody told me that in real life, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
What
so
is a
like
dungeon?
So these people are probably
I raid archaeological ruins.
well, even if you
for
think
loot.
about Indiana Jones
I'm a looter.
in like the original things, like he's not a good person. He's I would say a bad person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because he's aligned against the Nazis does not make him a hero.
Well, I think also like it just comes with like a presupposition. I don't know, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Of like this like built-in assumption of Dungeons and Dragons in general that it is this like colonialist like kick down the door, steal stuff from people type of game.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like inherently.
And I think that Mörk Borg in a way celebrates that and then takes it to its extreme where you're like, oh,
where everything's fucked. Yeah,
Where everything
it's like
is
actually
fucked.
you're trash for wanting that.
Yeah. And like the thing is that the world that I put you in, which is pretty close, if not the base setting, is that Galgenbeck, this huge city, 90% of people, maybe even more, live bitter, short lives in scum, while the top X% live lavishly off of the toil and suffering of others. Like that is just like the base setting of that city and the surrounding areas. Like literally you guys were going to a village that was forced to give a tithe. And when you got there, you guys were like, these people don't look well fed. And that's not, and like, they had only been like that for like a month. Like they had been facing trials and tribulations for a long time.
Right, yeah. The bad demon thing that happened to them was just like
Just the end,
It was like, oh, that level of malnourishment doesn't happen in a month.
Yeah, exactly. And they were having feasts of goats every night for like the last however long she took over the town for. So like these people were actually maybe like recovering from their malnourishment. So it's like
until they weren't.
But yeah, so I think that the world is pretty awful, and you could play it as like we are beacons of light in this dark world. I think that would be especially harder because of how quickly people can die.
It's just very
the swing on it is so brutal. Like
I think that's because we were talking about like how did we all feel about this game or whatever, and like I think that's. Like I don't want to say very strongly that I'm like I dislike this game, but I think it's just like this is not a game that I would run. Yeah, and this isn't necessarily like a game that I would want to be in the long-term campaign for because it is so lethal.
Yeah.
It is extremely lethal.
Yeah.
And I know I make it sound like my games are lethal and like the NSR games that I like are lethal. And it's like they're not. It's you just have to be careful.
In Mörk Borg, it is not uncommon to roll a character with 1 or 2 hit points.
Right.
That is crazy.
That happens in Karen too.
Yeah, it's just like that, but that's crazy because like
But I guess in Karen it means something different.
Yeah.
Because hit points are just hit protection.
yeah, this
So-
like is your
Is
health.
your flesh.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
your
yeah,
flesh.
yeah.
Yeah, like in the first game I played, there was a fanged mercenary that's one of the classes. I think fanged devourer or something.
Mm-hmm.
One of the classes, she like just jumped up, grabbed a bird, bit into it, it exploded and blew her head open. Like
Yeah.
died immediately from like a little joke she was doing.
Rio kind of experienced that too.
I did the same
there's,
thing.
There's
Yeah, you
very
did do the
similar
same.
things.
Wait, did you do the exact same thing and that's how
Very
you
nearly.
died?
No, there was crows in a camp, and I was trying to scare the crows away by attacking one, and it blew up.
Yeah,
And
and the
killed you.
gas inside. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it was the same thing.
It's funny because I remember you telling about it.
Yeah.
I used some meta knowledge to avoid those gaseous birds. It's like, I'm not going to attack those.
I don't think you needed a lot of meta knowledge
think I
though,
did
as much
either.
as like, oh, those birds look weirdly
Weird.
shaped.
I've been
and
trained
aren't
to
flying
attack
well.
things that look weird in my gaming.
But that's the thing is like in D&D or whatever, if it's like a monster, you're like that's monstrous.
colonialist.
We gotta attack.
Yeah, I was gonna
I attack things that look weird.
need to make you play more Planescape.
I fight things that are different from me.
No, but I do think that the thing that I loved about running Mörk Borg is that I could sit down and have a very fulfilling session where people were coming away and talking about parts of it and had memorable experiences with zero preparation.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was very easy to roll that in. And then also like and obviously we're all experienced GMs and everything and level
Yeah.
designers. So like when I just threw together that kind of RP village area and then the ending thing for it, like I can design that fairly well on the fly. But we also played directly out of the back of the book. I did not add or change anything in there. And it was also very fun and had some memorable experiences like those freaking guards. And remember when the prisoners got the crossbow and started shooting you guys?
Right, yeah.
It was stupid, man.
Do you think like the amount of sort of GM guidance that there was present in Mörk Borg? Like I don't know, I haven't read the book really.
Yeah.
It's like what did you think about that?
When I like reading
Yeah,
through the
like
book.
if you were like, okay, I'm prepared. I feel comfortable running this game, even if you.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
kind of a hard question to ask you because you are a seasoned GM at this point. You know.
The thing that I love about Mörk Borg is that you could take all the system stuff out of it and just use the tables and put it on your favorite TTRPG. Like you could just take the vast majority of what it provides and just slap it over whatever you like to play. So like in that way, it is what a great resource for any GM because it just provides you value for whatever game you play in. When it comes to the actual game, I am still loose on some of the rules when it comes to like, okay, when you rate a challenge, like how often am I supposed to ask for rolls?
Yeah.
When people are talking about their class features and everything, I was sort of just kind of rolling with certain things. But I think that the game gives you enough that a completely new person could read through it. And if it was a completely new group, that the game itself takes you through it without any input of the GM. Literally, the GM just asks for a roll, looks at a table, gives you the answer. Like even with character creation, like we didn't do it at the time because we were trying to do it a little bit faster. But one of my favorite things you can do, especially for new people, is sit down and just roll to make your characters. Like when we did that the first time.
Right, yeah.
How fucking fun is that? It's like, oh wow, I'm creating from nothing this complete person. And I like it even better than like D&D character creation because it has some bit of surprise to it. In D&D, you're making all the choices.
On D&D Beyond, you can just randomly roll people up.
Yes. But like with,
I'm gonna be the apologist.
but even with Mörk Borg,
Shay
even
does have shares in D&D Beyond.
Yes,
That's why he
exactly.
pitches it all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I share with lots of people. If you honestly, hey folks, want to engage with the tabletop community, go ahead and get on our Discord at me or go to our website and just invite me to your fucking game. If you have the sharing ability, I have all the content. You can have it.
Yeah, fuck Wizards.
I'm in so many fucking
Fuck
games.
Hasbro.
I mean, they set the system. Well, they allow
Beyond
the system.
did, yeah.
But the thing about it is that when you do like a click, you are clicking a button and it just poof gives you a character, and you're like, that's my character. With Mörk Borg, it is manually rolling each thing, so it's like a little treat each time. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, what a little surprise! Oh, I'm a Fang Devourer. Oh, I grew up in an inn where I lived by the fire like a dog. What a fun little backstory treat.
Yeah. That stuff is really fun. Like that's why I put it in my game too, where I'm just like, I just love the idea of rolling every die and creating something, like rolling a D4 through a D20, and then you just get something.
Yep. And then the thing that also the game allows you to do, if you don't really care about that mini game after the first time, roll a D4. That's how many times you hit generate on the scum birther, and you have a completely new character every time you die. You're back up and running within 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, it is built so that doesn't cause you. It's not a downside of the game. You can be back into it immediately. And I found online a fan created or community created D100. How do you find the new person in the game?
Yeah.
And
that
it's
was really
so good, man. There's so many great
I
things.
didn't know that was fan created.
Yeah, it's fan created.
That was so funny every time a new person showed up.
Yeah.
It was just like, you pop out of a wall or a giant worm comes out and a guy just bursts out of it.
My favorite thing about that list is that every single one of them make it feel as though you didn't see the rest of the adventure that this person just came out of, but now they're part of your adventure. Like that person was living a different life.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites that has never been rolled, but I love it so much, is everyone just remembers the new character having always been there. No one remembers the one that died. They're always like, no, you were the one that did that. It's just like completely like, even
That's
the person who
great.
joins the game is like, yeah, I've always been here. It's just like weird, like, let's put that in our back pocket to pay off later, you know?
Yeah. And then you can do anything you want as a referee with that,
exactly.
including nothing.
Yeah. You could just never do it, and then like in a one-off like game that you're just playing for fun, you have the backstory of why that happened. Maybe that's the one shot you do in a year for like Christmas or whatever. So generally, what did you all think about Mörk Borg?
Loved it. Would play it again.
Yeah.
I would play it again as a one shot. What did you guys think about, like, as far as it's like the ability to maintain a campaign in it? I guess we kind of went over that.
Yes, and I also think that as a referee, you don't have to be brutal. You don't have to brutalize your players like I did.
Yeah.
I was kind of giving you the out-of-the-book experience, but you don't have to play that way. And you can also scale it to be more like level appropriate. There are no levels really in Mörk Borg, but there are ways to advance. And it's all in the book there if you want to as well, to like get better ability scores or to get better equipment. That's all available to you to make you more survivable. And I think that if I wanted to sustain a campaign, I could be like, you're in a village, and instead of going into this crazy dungeon, maybe you're going into the village and you're doing a murder mystery, and by the end, the town are like, oh, you found the murderer, here's like a sword that has been in the back forever, and you slowly ramp until you're ready to take on Big Flesh Man.
Yeah.
Yep, I enjoyed it. I am more in the one-shot camp, but that's just mostly... I think I'm having a hard time envisioning how, even if you were to kind of like take the, put the gloves back on and make it easier, so to speak. I don't know. Just feels like someone's gonna die. Someone's gonna die pretty soon.
Yeah. It feels pretty instant.
Yeah. It is very much rocks fall, you die. You know what I mean? It is a little bit like that.
But rocks fall, you die. Hey, there was a guy on the top of the rock pile. He's in your party now.
Yeah.
That's so good. That would be so good. I mean,
very
that's
good.
lots of fun. I think I would just it really doesn't have an anchor in that respect. Like, one of the things that I think I really love this guy rockets down from space or whatever, or he pushed the rocks down. That was really fun. I also then, and I know that you can just do this, but I also then just want to go, okay, no. You're not just joining our company all of a sudden. I want to know why the fuck you just got vomited by a worm. What were you up to?
But
do we need to deal with that? Are we afraid of this happening? Or like, what's?
I mean,
But
that's
here's the thing.
that's just the mechanic that a fan made, though,
Yeah,
too.
but like
I
think
know.
about
Yeah,
it.
like-
Think about it this way. Like I'm such a fucking Warhammer shill these days. But one of the lore pieces in Age of Sigmar is that every time a Stormcast Eternal dies, they are brought back to Sigmar, which is like a god.
Yep.
His anvil, where he reforges them and sends them back down to continue fighting. And each time, like a bit of their humanity is wiped away. And so they're like, oh, if we die too many times, we lose ourselves, and we're just mindless machines. And you could do something like that.
There are definitely ways to,
like one of the heads of the basilisk reincarnates you every time, and so you keep crawling out of the dirt as this like new person, but you're the same person.
And there's as the 5e show at the table, and also definitely the Planescape guy at the table. That's actually a mechanic in the most recent 5e Planescape.
Yeah,
thing.
reincarnation.
Like if you die, literally this happens. Like this exact same thing happens in that campaign. If you die, and then around the corner walks that same person, except for now it's another version of them.
Yeah.
And like, I love that kind of shit, but also, it's, I don't know, it just, that would be more appealing and enable me to do a longer campaign, but it's just some wild swings.
Yeah, I think that the other thing too is that there is a broken mechanic.
Yeah.
Where, and you guys did this a couple times, when you go to 0, instead of dying, you come back broken, which is like there's something wrong with you now, like your leg got fucked up or whatever. Or
Is
like
that only when you go to exactly 0?
when you go to, if you go negative, you're gone. But you could always do it like you always have X amount of brokens before you die.
Yeah.
You could do something like that. You could always hack this thing to make it more.
I had a system that I was making that I don't really use, but it was basically like you take like an omen every time you go down to 0, and then you roll on a major injury table, depending, and then you always add how many omens you have.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, you will instantly die horribly.
Yeah. I think that for me, the reason why you would play Mörk Borg in a longer game is if you wanted to do a game that specifically dealt with the theme of like how doing something big affects these people throughout the time. Because there's like a thing where every time you use magic, you roll on an arcane catastrophe table, and if you fail, something bad happens to you. One of them is that all your teeth fall out and fingernails grow in instead. Like, that's an arcane catastrophe that comes from a misuse of magic. So, like, you could, throughout a 6-month campaign, become completely monsterfied. Like, you could completely become this, like, warped, like, magic creature that has turned into just, like, this completely unrecognizable being. But at the same time, they could have done that because they had to use every bit of magic that they had, even when it did something bad to them, to survive. You know what I mean?
You have to trim the nails, you think?
There's actually a lot in that where it's like, this is what it means for eating. This is what it means for social engagement. This is what it means for all of that.
I'm glad that there is that.
That's good.
It's like the vibes on that game are fantastic, perfect, no notes. And I'm sure you can play a long form campaign.
Also, I'm being devil's advocate here. I probably wouldn't play this in a long form game either. But a game to blow off steam, I think 100%. It is one of the best systems I've ever come across.
I think
exactly.
If I was going to do it's the perfect once a month game. Once a month long term campaign can do that. Once every week or every other week. I don't know about that.
Yeah, totally.
Just the tone, you mean? Or
just,
like,
I don't know. Like, maybe it is the tone. Maybe it is like, I feel like, I just don't feel like I'm going to actually save this world. Like
I think for me it would mostly be tonal, and then like the lethality part.
Yeah.
Which I know you said we can mitigate,
you could always
but
hack, right? But like it is also out of the box, not the way that game wants to be played.
Yeah.
So you would have to do some alterations.
It's quite grim. Yeah.
And you know what? I am so good at talking myself out of things because like I'll immediately think, but I also really fucking love the Dark Souls series. Yeah. So
like maybe
I'm wrong. I'll play this in a long form campaign. Fucking roll it up for me, dude.
Maybe you play like as a Dark Souls thing.
I mean, you could also do it like that where it's like you die and then you're like you come back to the next day, you come back to a campfire and then you're there again.
You're back. Yeah. And when you were talking about the two the basilisk heads, I was like, oh, that's Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
That's actually Dark Souls 1, there's two snake guys.
Yeah.
And they're both saying the same thing but differently.
Yeah.
And
well, with that too, like that can also make your players feel like there's a point to everything.
Yeah.
Because if it's like, oh, well, the basilisk is reincarnating me, and it's like, that must mean I'm supposed to be the hero.
And you know
I'm
what?
chosen. Yeah.
I'm chosen somehow.
Yeah, and I hit the character I rolled was a nihilist.
Yeah.
And specifically had something about like nothing matters.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, so that's also probably playing into my mentality
It could be really
here.
interesting to come back as a clean slate the first time, and every
Yeah.
time you die, you have to roll on that table to get another bad trait from
That's fun.
You know what I
And then
mean?
all the bad traits build up or something.
Yeah, and
That's
like
a lot of fun.
So eventually you're like,
Yeah.
nothing matters. I die every day and come back by this fucking snake. Like, what is the point to life? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm into it. All right, let's roll it.
I think that
that's
there's a way to do it. Yeah.
It's such a weird negative trait though.
Yeah.
Because it just kind of feels like it's like one of those traits where like it's like, oh, I'm just playing. That's what my character would do, and then
Yeah.
you're kind of like, okay, well, you have to roll up a new character to actually play the game now.
Yeah, I think that was that again. That may have been also part of my hesitation. Is just
Yeah.
like
It's a mild criticism for me.
there's just so many reasons to not engage. Like, and I am a big fan of like when my character's arc is done, it's done, and I am leaving, and now I'm going to get a new character that can engage with the arc.
yeah.
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 I also think it could be a great like D&D struggles with this with like evil campaigns or whatever. But like this is, I think, the better version of an evil
Yeah.
campaign where
Yeah.
you're selfish.
Oh, yeah.
But you're not genocidal.
Yeah, I don't know anything about evil campaigns in 5e, but everything I've heard about evil campaigns sounds like fucking miserable.
Yeah,
it sounds
and-
like everybody's like a fucking edgelord.
This is why I
doing
don't
some
watch The
bullshit.
Boys, because it sounds
Yeah.
like an evil D&D campaign.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but
just
I don't
like,
know
I don't
what
really care.
what you guys' experience is with evil campaigns, but I've just like heard of some. I've also heard of like people playing evil characters on a team of like good characters.
That sounds crazy to me.
Lawful
Well, I
evil is
did
the only
that.
way you can do that.
Yeah, and it always they were just saying
Was Valon
they were like,
lawful
oh,
evil?
they were he is.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like
was?
well, but like, you know, like if you like really play it that way,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of like that character in that game that I heard about like would just always do stuff on their
On
own.
their own, which is just like
Yeah.
then why play with that group of people?
Yeah,
you
and
know
it's
what I
like roll up a character that would hang out with these guys.
I
I
also
had a real life experience with that, where someone's like, "Oh, the villain's going to reward us if we turn on everyone." And he attacked the party. I was like, "Well, you're on your own now." He goes, "What? What do you think is going to happen?"
Yeah.
the
consequences of my
actions.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, "You'll play this evil character now, and so you'll just sit until the bad guys come on screen because you chose to do this."
Shade, were you at any point prepared when you were playing Sora in my campaign, and because she was doing all kinds of sneaky
Technically
stuff?
chaotic neutral, but
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, chaotic neutral for sure. But like, there were various points where I felt like she could have done something to hurt the party.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was prepared
Yeah.
to 100%.
To be like, new character
every
time.
every single session. I told you guys,
Mm-hmm.
she is ready to betray you at the drop of a hat.
I also
I told you that.
I mean, I also went through that with KB too.
Yeah.
And with
whereas-
Mallory.
Yeah, Mallory.
kind of.
Mallory, this is. maybe
so
this
mad
is-
about Mallory.
Maybe this is a different episode.
yeah,
This
we've
is-
got
yeah,
we've
it
got
is.
into a new episode.
Yeah, I feel as though.
Welcome to Tabletop, everyone. Today we're going to talk about
Alignments.
Old gripes.
I just feel like most of my characters, I'm not yet a good enough player story wise, like or enough of a story arc, like mathematician in my head.
You should try practicing with improv.
That's a great idea.
holy shit.
I know.
Absolutely
Jesus.
devastating.
Jesus.
It is
Well,
my.
if
it
no
is
one knows-
technically my birthday week, Rio, and you just really fucked it.
Well, for
Oh,
me and
God.
Rio, the week doesn't start until Monday.
Well, you're wrong.
We do
so.
weekends the right way.
But something I was saying, is that I am not very good at being like, yes, this is where this character ends. And I also feel like I have a lot of peer pressure with other people at the table, so I don't make the right choice for my character sometimes. The biggest version of that was with Mallory, where we found the worm god or whatever that he worships. He should have absolutely been like, yes, let me ascend with you. I don't give a shit about these people.
The worm god.
Remember when we went down into that cave and there was like the
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
grub guy,
Oh, yeah, you
and
just
it
took
was like,
you
this
took the book from him.
yeah, and like I was like, this book is literally this character considers this book containing all the secrets of the universe. This person is like literally a god to him. Of course, he would accept whatever this thing
Yeah.
says. So I didn't play it very well because I was like, I don't want to leave everybody dead in the bottom of the cave. Yeah.
Just to explain the joke from Rio, Nick does improv. I don't know if anybody knows that.
Yeah.
That was the
Unfortunately.
joke. That was the joke.
And with that, why don't we talk about our final thoughts and whether we think people should either buy, borrow, or
Steal.
ignore this game.
Ignore.
And this isn't sort of like a 5 stars or whatever. Obviously, we all think that you should buy whatever you want and like the games you like. This is not binding in any way. I think that this is incredible value to buy. If you want all the beautiful art and a nice like bound book and everything.
Most
it's
independent like RPGs are such a better value than any 5e game.
For like less
Shade.
like $20 or
I'm not going to
less.
disagree.
$20 or less, you can buy a Mörk Borg book or supplement that will be you could take all of the tables and all the random encounters and all the monsters and everything. You could just take them out and put them in whatever game you're playing. It is literally just value. It is just stuff that you can use in every game.
Yep.
So I think that this is an absolute, I want it on my shelf. I want basically all of the versions of this, but they also have 2 community-made bundles that they've put together and professionally released under the Mörk Borg like press.
Oh, nice.
So very cool that they're supporting the community in this way. And then Rio, you've already bought some of the community-made systems that came out of this, like Mörk Borg.
I got I've kickstarted Mörk Borg, so that'll come out in November.
Yeah.
And I've ordered Pirate Borg.
Yeah, because I think the only 2 that are like made by the 2 creators were
Cyborg
and Mörk Borg.
Yeah.
So like these are new systems that are being published out of this original system.
Right, yeah. I think
And-
Dave, the DM, is like an internet person, and he's making Mörk Borg.
Yeah.
And the Psalm of Steel, which is like a supplement to Mörk Borg.
Yeah. I just think that it's incredible value. But what about the rest of you? You guys have only played, you haven't ran it as a GM or a referee. But what do you think from your experience? Is this something that you think you should have on your shelf? You should borrow for one
Well,
shot?
I ran out and bought it, so there's my
yeah.
there's my take.
Rio, you
That's
went like into the deep end with me so quick. You were like, yes, I will. I would like to just pay all this money for these things. So you and I, we're on the right track.
Yeah.
But what about you two?
On the right track.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I would say, yeah, get it. It's to your point, it's got lots of value in it. It's going to be interesting. It's not extraordinarily expensive, and you're guaranteed to have a fun time with it. So I really can't imagine, even if like heavy metal's not my aesthetic, it's just not. But fuck if it's not really cool to play this game, you know? So
even if it's just like you said, a one-off, maybe the one-off had like we played. It was probably like 4 hours. For this quick one shot. You can make them shorter. I just can never judge length very well. But 4 hours with a $20 book that allowed us to do everything and had the stuff in there already. Like that's $5 an hour, and that was one
I was
use.
gonna say that's I spend more on lunch.
Yeah.
So that's, I hate to
did
say that,
earlier.
but I literally do spend more on lunch. So.
And the thing about it too is that you don't even really need to buy the beautiful book.
Yeah,
You
the rules are free.
The rules are free. These people are awesome. Like think about in comparison to Hasbro and like the OGL scandal and everything. It's like they're doing
Here's a little
right.
Here's a little piddly, poorly designed SRD for you, 5.1 or whatever. And it's like, oh, here, just have the rules. You can just have them.
Yeah.
I think the Mörk Borg SRD is not the fully designed PDF though. I don't think, but
I think it doesn't have like all the art and stuff in it, but it has all the information, the tables and everything. And the thing about it too, going back to OGL and what you were talking about, is that the license on the game, like we've talked about, Rio was mentioning that just a complete non-person in this game company or game partnership is developing a game under the same system and with some of the rules and everything. They allow that. They're basically like, no fucking Nazis, no, like any content that comes out that we think is problematic in like a social norm sort of way, we're just going to boot and not allow you to use it. But everyone is allowed to publish under the sort of Borg license.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. What a great thing to do for your community.
Yeah,
I like
100%.
it. What do you think, Franco?
I think it's cool. I wouldn't purchase it. I'd borrow it. It's not really for me, mostly because I am like, just like, oh, I'm going to make my own system and work within it and stuff like that. To run all of the thing that I'm more interested in nowadays is adventures versus systems because I've found a system that I like I'm making it work within what I want to do. And so for that reason, I probably wouldn't purchase it.
Yeah.
But I think it's very cool, and I would love to borrow it.
Yeah.
But and like read it and stuff. And I like it for one shots. I'd be willing to try out a campaign. I could give it a second shot. But I think it was just like I think it's like not for me as a referee. But
Yeah.
I could see like doing like a bunch of one shots in it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, this was our general review / talk about Mörk Borg. I am so glad that this game is out there, that this company is out, or not company. I don't even know if they're like a company or if they're just the two guys or whatever.
Yeah, they're a
it's a
company.
company.
Yeah,
they're
they're
a company. Yeah.
The company also just does really great. I'm glad that they're in the space. I'm glad they're getting more recognition, and I think everyone should check it out.
Never mind. Actually, I was gonna say I don't know if this is the case, but Free League is also like
Yeah.
straight out of Planescape.
Yeah.
Like it's a faction, a minor faction in Planescape.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's where they got their name. I couldn't find any details on that.
All right. We will see you next time on Tabletop next Monday. If you want more Tabletop, you can always subscribe. We have so many episodes. If you want even more than that, you've already listened to all of them. Head to our Patreon, patreon.com/tabletop, where you can get free episodes and paid episodes, depending on what tier you're at. If you want to be free, there's a couple of different things that you can get on there, and we're adding more every day. If you are paid any amount, then you get a monthly episode of a podcast we do called Wild Magic, where you just get to listen to the host talk about stuff that they really like during that time.
Like
We're
Gilmore
adding
Girls.
stuff
Like Gilmore
every
Girls.
so often. Not every day.
Yeah, I mean,
Every
not
day is very generous. Yeah.
But we are thinking about it, or I am thinking about it quite frequently. Maybe not every day. Oh God, this went off the rails. Okay, bye everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Just gonna keep.